Hi. Let's see if I can see myself first. And then hopefully that means that you can see me as well. Yep. Seems that the video feed is working. Or not. Or yes or no. Let's see. Okay, now it's actually working because I can see my hands moving. Then let's do some housekeeping first. So I'm going to add a link to the blog post or the announcement post first to the chat. And if I did it correctly, it should be also kind of featured. Don't know what that means, but hopefully it will be okay. So if you want to look back on the products, there's some links there to the manufacturer's sites, and of course then you can ask during the live. I'm not going to repeat it step by step, let's say the same way, because after making this one I had a few ideas in my mind, so it's going to be a little bit different but somewhat the same, let's say. And a couple of words in Finnish, just in case there's Finnish viewers. Elikkä moikka moi, hyvää iltaa. Tällä kertaa siis, vaikka ollaankin täällä oman blogin sivun puolella, niin on tarkoitus englanniksi ruveta höpöttämään tätä liveä. Mutta tuttuun tyyliin, jos on kysymyksiä, niin ei muuta kuin kysymään niitä suomeksi. Vaihtelen sitten kieltä puolin ja toisin. Moi moi Niina! I just said that if there's Finnish viewers, my main language today is going to be English. And if they have any questions, they can also ask in Finnish. I do know some Swedish too, so if there's Swedish-speaking viewers, then you can ask in Swedish as well. But I'll then reply in English, unfortunately, because my spoken English, Swedish is not that good. Well, it's a couple of more minutes until the announced time, let's say, so let's wait a little bit. Hey Asta! And today, this is moi moi Kaisu! Today it's not going to be like hardcore mixed media, let's say. It's a laid back, easy little project, but hopefully still some ideas how to add texture or combine elements or whatever. So just kind of laid back thing this time. So it's this kind of little spring wall hanging thing with a wooden base. But of course you could use the same techniques on top of a card or make your own little house using either chipboard or like heavy body, no, not heavy body, but heavy cardstock if you don't have a ready house, because the shape is, simple enough. Or if this is a birdhouse actually, because of the round little window, but still. One more minute and then I'll start. Heippa hei Johanna! Toistetaan vielä, että jos tulee siis kysymyksiä suomeksi ja englanniksi, niin ei muuta kuin kysymään. Eli siis niin kuin vaihtelen kielestä toiselle sitten tarvittaessa. Moi moi Heli! Just repeat it that if there's any questions, just leave them to the chat. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat while I'm making, but if in case I miss anything, I'll then go back afterwards. I'm not sure if I should add more light because, whoops, sorry. I'm not sure which one's better. As I still have time, let's try with the big screen. A little more light. Did that do anything? Well, let's use it all the way up. I'm not sure if that did actually anything but a bigger glare. There, so. But let's go with this. It is what it is. It's pitch black outside here in Finland. But we are heading for the light because of the spring. So, with that words, let's get started. So, hi everybody! Today I'm remaking something like this. As I wrote in the blog post, it's going to be a little bit different because I had a few ideas after making this one. But let's see then which one's better, this one or the new one. Hey Karita! Heikka Päivi! Welcome, welcome! So, let's see. Where's my paint? There. First, I'm adding some acrylic paint here. I'm using PaperArtsy paints, which are nice, chalky looking paints. But if you don't have PaperArtsy paints, of course, you could use any acrylic paint. And the base I'm using it's from a local craft store. Suomalaisille tiedoksi siis Sinellistä. Just a ready wooden base, which you can then alter or decorate the way you want. If you want to use less color, because the wood is of course absorbing surface, you can first paint a layer of gesso, because then that blocks the acrylic paint, the colored acrylic paint, absorbing into the wood, so you need a lot less. But if you're layering, like I'm doing now, then the first layer is the one you need the most paint, because acrylic paint does the same thing as the acrylic gesso, just the, well, paints are usually more expensive because of the different colorants than just plain white gesso, so depending, it's not a big surface anyhow, so it's fine. I want to get to the little corner there. Yeah, now it's done. This one is called Summer Sky if you want to use the actual same paint. Then a quick dry. Like that. No heippa hei Heidi. And let's add a stencil. I'm not sure if you're still able to get these, at least in Finland or anywhere, but these were Prima marketing product, a stencil roll. So it's sticky, as you can see, a little bit, well, dirty on the backside, but you can use it multiple times. And I really like, not sure how to put it like that, because it kind of grabs to the surface, and then you can use it a couple of times, and especially if you're doing workshops or something, because it's a big roll, it's then easy to give people their own little piece. But I'm not sure if they are available anymore. Of course, you could use just any kind of floral stencil or any other pattern for that matter. Then I'm taking white gesso and dabbing some of the paint kind of off before going over the pattern, because otherwise the paint will go underneath the stencil really easily if there's too much paint. This is not going to be white pattern, kind of the same as here, so it's a little bit muted, but I like it. It's not overpowering. Maybe something still here. Let's put that one flower here. So just press it down a little. Then let's dab this little flower and we're done. Moikka moi Kati! Tällä kertaa tosiaan siis hölpöttelen englanniksi tässä tämän liven aikana, mutta kuun lopussa pari viikon päästä on tulossa ihan suomenkielinenkin versio, eri projekti totta kai siis silloin, mutta jotakin on tulossa. Then actually why did I close the jar? Because I'm going to use the paint to paint the roof, which is then going to be snowy after some times. But that's kind of the last step, because, well, like you can see from, or hopefully you can see, yeah, you can see from the finished version that it's Crackle paste, so that's going to be the last thing I add, because then it needs to dry overnight or at least several hours, because you can't really use the heat tool with Crackle paste, otherwise it won't crackle as nicely. You get either no crackles at all or just tiny ones, whereas you leave it air dry, you get also those bigger nice cracks where there's more medium or thicker layer. I'm just wondering, why did I just take just a huge brush from the jar for this one, but as there's a little bit of height difference between the roof and the main body of the house, I'm able to pull this off probably. Come on, it's mixed media anyway, so it's not that accurate. Like so. Now I can close the jar. If you're just joining in, welcome, hello. We're making a cute little spring house today. Nothing too fancy, just an easy laid-back project this time. Next, I'm adding a little bit of texture to the house by using corrugated cardboard. Like a really easy way to add a little bit of texture. So whereas here I put the corrugated cardboard first and then painted everything blue, this time I thought that I want the kind of base of the house, I have no clue what it's called in English, kivijalka, Finnish word would be stone foot, to be a different color. and not the same. And I'm just using craft glue to adhere this piece to the base. Of course, another way, a little bit longer, taking a little bit longer because of the drying time, you could add a pattern to the bottom part of the house using stencils, just with modeling paste or something to give it that grounded look. But this is kind of a really easy version. And I'm thinking, oh, because this house is kind of vertical line, so that's why I want the lines to go upwards, kind of reminding of planks, wooden planks here. Then let's add paint. Okay, everything is now jumping up and down when I'm cleaning my brush. I could leave it like this. Perhaps should have shaked this one first. Okay. Now we're talking. But I have a reason why I'm painting this with a similar looking color. Acrylic paints dry quite fast, so let's see if I can manage or if I need another layer. If you would just want to highlight the texture, you don't have to use that much paint and over kind of use the dry brush techniques, just going to the tops of, that's not a big contrast, but you could just go with a little bit of paint and highlight the texture. In case you want to do something similar or like the color, this one is called Buff. Again, PaperArtsy Fresco Finish acrylic paint. So then I'll add another layer, and let's see if I can move quickly enough. This way around. So while acrylic paint kind of more grabs to the surface rather than is absorbed into it, it's kind of, I'm trying to use that as an adhesive for this really light book paper piece. So there's the wet acrylic paint underneath and then the paper on top. Of course, you could use, maybe not talking while I'm drawing, you could use a craft glue as well if you want to, for example, leave it as it is and not add paint. But just another idea. Now let's see how well I did. That one ain't adhered, so let's take it off. But these seem sturdy enough. So let's just cut the excess. So I think that's fine. So that's kind of the biggest difference between these two houses. This one is whole blue and this one has a little bit more going on. And then let's do all the thingies coming on top and let's see, which one looks better. Where is my watercolor paper? There it is. Let's first stamp the tulips, because then I need to leave the paper dry for a while. So I'm guessing my liner, or then I can just do this. Remove one sheet and work on here with the leaves. This is watercolor paper, and I'm going to use watercolors, so that's what I kind of advise for you to use. But what I often use for any kind of mixed media is then Fabriano Academia cardstock. If you have seen my videos or read my blog, you know what I'm talking about, because I often refer to that. It's kind of my go-to paper, and it handles watercolor as well. What I'm now doing is kind of going with different leaf kind of plant shapes. No planning ahead, just drawing some kind of line. I actually like these two, even though they look nothing like leaves. Let's do one with like more of a leafy structure. So these are, whoopsie daisy, guides. Then I'm going to take a wet brush and just wet the leaf shape, not the whole paper. Let's try to do a couple at one go. So this is just water, kind of doing the wet on wet with the watercolors. If you don't own watercolors, but you have water-soluble inks like distress inks, you could then press the ink pad to a piece of plastic or something that doesn't absorb the color immediately, and then use a wet brush to pick those colors up, kind of using them as watercolors. What else? A little bit of yellow and blue maybe. So let's start with blobs of green, then blobs of another green, and another one, so I'm just touching with a colorful or a loaded brush to the pool of water which I first laid to the leafy shapes, and then I let the colors mix, kind of just flowing into each other. Let's do a couple of more. Hopefully this is not too boring. Because something like this, like a set of leaves, for example, are kind of, well, they go to so many projects. So when you do one batch, you can then save the extras and use them when you need them. You could do this without the pencil line, of course, but I did that for 2 reasons. So it's easier for you to see what I'm doing, is one reason. But the other is also that then when I'm drawing, I'm thinking of the shape and I don't have to think more with just adding, kind of painting with water, the shape. So just blobs of color added to the wet watercolor cardstock. A bit more there. If you then would like to have more details, let's try it already. You can then just let this layer dry first, and then you can go on with another go, then on top of dry surface with details if you want. Or you could pick up a paint pen or watercolor markers or watercolor pencils and just doodle on top, depending what you're after. So let me move this aside for a while. Try to keep it level. And then let's do some tulips. These are a PaperArtsy stamp set. It's scrap cozies stamp set called 31. These tulips, and I think they fit very nicely to spring. Of course, you could paint your own flowers as well. I'm not that daring this time, just adding or using the stamp to make my flowers. Let's make a couple. Or do you want me to use the big one as well? I can at least just stamp it. We can then decide if it's going to be a part of this project or then maybe a card later on or an original page. Often if I get my stamps or paints or whatever out and I do little elements for whatever project that may be, and if I have extra, I then store them in a little drawer, and then if I'm scrunched for time, I can then just pull that drawer out and use the handmade little embellishments and details to make a card or an original page or a focal point to original page. Oh, not a perfect stamp. Let's try another time. Some of you may be shocked to see me use a acrylic block because I often opt out. But this time I thought that I might want to have a nice flower, like the whole details, then I'm using the acrylic block this time. Yeah, better. If you're not wanting to do your own leaves, just paint them, then for example here there's this kind of set of leaves, and of course there's a whole bunch of different leaf stamps out there as well. So if you don't want to draw or paint yourself, there's always options. or you can use a stencil. Let's quickly give them a dry. Just in case, even though it's watercolor paper, absorbing surface, so it should be just fine, but better safe than sorry. Do you have a color preference for the tulips? Let me show you from these. Here I used kind of the opposite color, so they are yellow and orange. So shall we make the same color or something else? Minkä väriset tulppaanit tehdäänkö? Samaa väristä vai jotain muuta? Saatte vaikuttaa. Something else or the same? There's a whole lot of colors to choose from. Leaves are green, so probably not green tulips, but pink or purple. Okie dokie, let's go with pink and purple. Let's put some water to all of those, and let's paint the stem stalks. What are these? Stems, I think. Probably this is going to be way too big for the little house. It's going to cover the whole thing, so let's just concentrate on these two. Start with kind of a pale color. Do a little wash, and while that is still wet, there's a bit more water there. Let's add a darker tone here. Same with this. More water, kind of a pool of water, and then darker. Then let's see if the leaves are any closer for being dried. Well, not that much. It would be better to leave them air dry, because what happens when I'm taking this one, I'm kind of pulling the color to one place, and then either I get a really stark color to one place, or then if I use a rag to dry it, they got these white spots. But still. And then it's going to be white blob time. I might add another layer to those because now they look so pale. I got this one here, and then my little rag on top. those aside for a while. Let's add a bit of that darker tone to these. A little bit darker pink to the inside as well, kind of making a shade. No, not shade, a shadow. Sorry. These aside for a while. These just a quick dry. And then we can take these out. And add some pencil marks to these. Just kind of going with the flow, highlighting the shape or accentuating, making it a little bit bolder. Then I'm using the same pencil to these, adding a little bit of more definition, more details to the flowers, kind of just a line across, some detailing to the petals and to leaves. You don't have to do again, come on. If you like it more with just a subtle look, and even the pencil looks too dark of a line going in for the motifs, then just don't do it. Or use white pen instead, or do a couple. Even though there's acrylic paint now underneath, and this is just a pencil, if you don't like it, it's not coming all off, let's say. If you then take a eraser and start rubbing, of course you can take kind of the edge off, make it more subtle if you first try it and then don't like it. But why I added to the original one, and partly I'm kind of whispering when I focus. Yeah, I noticed that my speaking stalls for a while. But yeah, what I use it for here is because of the stamped and black ink. So the contrast between the tulips and everything else was so stark. So I didn't want to add black details, but just kind of a little bit more something. So that's why I chose to draw in a little bit more details. Then we have a set of leaves. I really like these blob ones, even though they are nothing like tulip leaves. Maybe I'll just try them. If you're a fussy cutter, you know this or have been watching my lives before, but in case there's someone new, then when you are cutting, and I like to use scissors, so if you're cutting with scissors, the shape moves around and the scissors stay put. That's the way to do it, kind of most effectively. Some people love to use their X-Acto knives, scalpels. I'm really poor with those. It takes me a lot more time to use that kind of knife than just with regular scissors. What about you? Do you use scissors or knife when you are fussy cutting? Ready die cuts or then dies with the wet matching stamp set are also quite a good solution. But if you're making something like this, you hand-drawn embellishments, then you need to just cut them out on your own. So let's see if these are looking really silly with the tulips then. These are kind of like ferns a little bit because of the bulky or rounded tips. Aren't those quite early plants as well? The ferns. Not that much, they are so leafy green. And then the same treatment to the tulips, cutting them out. And the color change from the yellowy ones to something else is really good. I think the orange or yellow ones would got lost because of this beige. So just one more, then we need to add some pencil marks to these flowers as well, tying it all together that way before we can mount them to the actual project. So something stamped, something handmade. Then these tulips are quite huge, considering that they are almost height of the house. But maybe this is a fairy cottage or something. Then where's my foam tape? Here it is. Let's start with this leaf or fern or whatever it may be. I want a little jungle kind of thing. So I'm using foam tape to mount these to get kind of a dimensional look. If you don't have foam tape, of course, you can use pieces of cardboard or then just make it flat if you don't like having things two-dimensional. There's always a number of different options you can then use. Thinking there. So just a piece of tape underneath here as well. And then let's follow the composition and add this one there. Not changing it too much. Easier to compare then the two projects. Like which one is then to your liking or my liking or the liking of all of us. And some pieces there just. Also somewhat different color scheme with the leaves. These are more blue toned, these ones, and these are more yellowy or even a little bit brown. There we go. And as you can see, I didn't attach the stems just yet because we are going to add the snow soon. Oh, I forgot about the details. Then let's go over them with a kind of light hand, because otherwise, as I didn't put the foam to all the way around, then I might poke a hole if I'm not careful enough. Here we go. Then what? Be still, listen. Here we have the same sticker. Maybe a piece of foam tape to the end. Here we go. And it's crooked. Let's go a little bit straight. Thank you. And then the snowy details. For those I'm using Crackle paste and some art stones. So first the Crackle paste, and I forgot the palette knife. Luckily it's just two steps away. So here we go. Let's do the roof first. Oh no, there's a here. Well, let's see if I can get it off a little bit later. And I'm doing a kind of varying layer, so it's thicker in places and thinner in places, because I want that different sizes of crackles to this layer. So there's a couple of places with really thick layer where I'm going to get then bigger cracks, and then just thinner in places where there's going to be just smaller cracks. Let me show you from this one. Let's see if I can get it to the right place. Yeah, somewhat. So there's the bigger ones, and then over here hopefully are the teeny tiny ones. if you would like to highlight those, you could add watercolor wash kind of on top, or then just ink and use that to highlight the cracks even more. Might do another tone there. And here for the snow, I'm just using the same paste, kind of grounding the elements with it, almost like I'm decorating a cake in a way. Then let's snip these off. Clean my scissors. And then some, oops, wrong jar. This one. A little bit of kind of snowballs or earth or kind of a different texture there. So these will stay put on top of the Crackle paste, even though it then cracks. So the little art stones, because they are so light, they will still stay put. Just adding some of them in the mix so they are a little bit more white, and then some are just kind of on top. Maybe it's been really icy and somebody has been throwing sand, or maybe then these are kind of, what's it called, for the growth of the plants, fertilizer. So they are now looking a little bit more different than they will after the Crackle paste has dried. So which one do you prefer? The one made previously or the one made now? Quite different shape of the leaves, for example, and different color scheme. But here maybe you can see the texture a little bit better because it's different, whereas here it's kind of the same color, the whole thing. Here the tulips, in my eye, are kind of more prominent. You can see them better because of the high kind of contrast between the yellow and the blue, or the orange and the blue, opposite colors, whereas here they are more of well, more easy to look at, as there's no that much contrast between the colors. But, well, whichever you like, you can then either replicate or then just do your own color version. It doesn't have to be a blue house. But it could be yellow and then red tulips, or it could be a brown house and orange tulips, or white house, and so forth. Karita likes pink and Kati likes the yellow one. I'm actually a bit drawn between the two, torn, because I, funnily enough, like this contrast, because usually I steer for more of this like palette. Well, maybe I need to wait this one to dry and then make my decision. Orange more, and blue, yeah. Even though it's kind of the same, but then there's a little bit of difference in the texture. So in a way, it's, well, showing the texture differently. But yeah, that's all for now, folks, or how it does it go, Looney Tunes version. I hope you liked this. Really easy, kind of easy landing to 2023 with crafting. And if you have any questions, just leave them to the chat. I'll get notified when there's new comments, so I can then come and reply. And if you're Finnish speaking here, then I'll be seeing you hopefully in a couple of weeks when I then talk Finnish. A couple of words in that tongue. Eli kiitos hei taas kun tulitte. Ja jos on kysymyksiä, niin ei muuta kuin edelleen niitä tuohon laittelemaan. Ja parin viikon päästä, niin ihan suomeksi on tarkoitus taas pitää liveä. Silloin ei tehdä taloja, silloin tehdään ystävänpäiväkortteja. Mallitkin on jo tehty. Mutta kiitos siis kaikille. Thank you all and have a nice day or night depending where you are. I'm going to clean up a little, then go through the comments and then start spending the Saturday night with the family. But thank you and have a great 2023. Hopefully it will be the best one yet. So thank you. Bye.